Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right. My name is Mike Piwowarski, coming to you live from the East Coast. It's the coast with the most from the co-host with the most here on The Rundown. 2A Views, conservative news, and Craig, guess what day it is?
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
Ronnie, how happy are
That's right. Today is Hump Day. This is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not, but the fun is always in the trying.
I think I'm going to give it a shot right now.
You're going to give it a shot with a shot? Oh, I can dig it. There you go.
Hold that.
Very nice. Very nice. Good stuff, sir. Good stuff. How was your Veterans Day weekend?
Relaxing, like it should be. Just chilling. Did a little radio, and that was about it. All good.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I didn't get a chance to wish it to you on Monday, but let me say once again, thank you for your service. Very much appreciate you hanging out in the desert for me.
Appreciate it. I like the work. You know, I actually spent more time in the jungle than the desert. It's, I think about it, but we got to have more fun in the desert. So.
Ah. Well, it's all about having the fun, right?
Hey, listen, I wasn't there if it wasn't fun. It's a unique experience,
That's kind of the point. Well, it's not really the point. But nonetheless, we're going to have a good time, huh?
Yep, exactly right.
Good stuff. Good stuff. For me, the weekend was I want to put it, just didn't do a whole lot. Not a lot of work, not a lot of honeydew stuff. Really just kind of caught up on stuff. So kind of needed to do that.
Good for you. Yeah, according to the honey, right? Yeah.
Yep, there you go. Got to do the honeydew stuff.
That's it.
I have to tell you though, it's been interesting following social media lately because people have been just literally losing their minds, and I honestly don't know what to think of some of it, to be quite honest with you. I feel like there are some people that I know who desperately need therapy.
Yeah, well, for years, right? That's the problem. Is the other 53% of the country said, "Well, we're tired of your nonsense and that you need therapy all the time. We're going back to conservative values." So
Well, exactly. It reminded me of that meme. The 25% of liberals are on some form of medication, and that's scary because that means 75% of liberals are just out there with no medical care whatsoever.
Exactly right. Yeah, that would be good portrayal. Yep.
Oh, funny stuff. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into today's program. But before we do, you know what we got to do? We got to first give a quick shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah. Let's say hi to hitmanindustries.net. You got yourself an AR in the past 5 years. You probably got one of their barrels and don't even know it. Well, now you can buy from them factory direct at hitmanindustries.net. California Republican Assembly fighting a good fight behind enemy lines. Now you can take part in California's future today. If you want the best tactical concealed holsters on the market, get on over to hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all one word, no spaces, all caps. Get a nice little discount. And if you want the best in field gear, tactical gear, web gear, outdoor gear, you can get everything except the gun at uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. These are our sponsors. They bring us to you so that we can bring you to them. Do us a favor. Do them a favor. Do yourselves a favor. Visit their websites. All you got to do is follow the links in the description of this program. Just follow those links, and it'll take you right to their websites. Check out what you see. If you like what you see, and you'll like what you see, spend some money with them, and remind them that the guys over at The Rundown sent you. Also want to encourage you, if you're watching the program right now live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Rumble, on Twitter, please go ahead and comment. We're following your comments. And if we like what you have to say, well, I don't even necessarily know if we like what you have to say. If we find it interesting enough to mock you, then we will go ahead and we'll share it with everybody. So go ahead, comment, let us know what you're thinking about the program, about the country, about making America great again, all that fun stuff. Go ahead, comment, and let us know. What's up?
All right, I think that's it, right? If we like your comments, we'll share them. If we don't like your comments, we'll mock you.
But we will mention them either way.
Oh, yeah. Probably make fun of your name.
We will definitely make fun of your names, or at the very least, I'll mispronounce. How about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have no idea how much work it took for me to finally pronounce Pivowarski right.
And you're almost close. You're almost there. So
I'm almost there. So this is why you watch the first year of the show, I was calling Mikey P for the longest time.
that works for me. All of it works.
All of it works. All of it works. All right, well, folks, I'm so glad that Mike is here today because so much of what we're going to be talking about is right in his wheelhouse. Being a military veteran, you know that he's got a lot of opinions on the stuff we're going to be talking about. And we're going to start with Donald Trump and his target of the wokeism that currently resides or currently exists within the military. Well, Donald Trump, he's putting together a list. He's putting together a list and he's checking it twice. And according to Reuters, this is supposed to be an exclusive, but we know it's not just an exclusive. It says here, Trump's team drawing up a list of Pentagon officers to fire, sources say. It says here, members of President-elect Donald Trump's transition team are drawing up a list of military officers to be fired, potentially to include joint chiefs of staff. Two sources said in what would be an unprecedented shakeup at the Pentagon. The planning for the firings is at an early stage after Trump's November 5th election victory and could change as Trump's administration takes shape, said the sources, who are familiar with Trump transition and requested anonymity to speak candidly about the plans. Now, Mike, you and I both know that a lot of this has to do with wokeism, and I put on there wokeism, but really it has to do with the poor state of readiness that our military is in, and wokeism being just one issue. All right, Mike, hold on a second. I think I made a boo-boo, an error somewhere, because I could not hear a thing you were just saying. Let me see here. Let me make sure that you are on here. Dun, dun, dun. Hold on, let me get back to my soundboard over here.
good. Should be good.
Oh, okay. You sound good now. Here we go.
I'm having technical issues, so you lose me, just move on. But
All right.
you got me.
Well, go ahead and share your thoughts, sir.
Okay. So the issue, really, underlying issue is not DEI. It's not wokeism. It's the loyalty of the general officers. They have doubled down on the last administration. So what if the history on this is general officers were selected by the military and confirmed by the Congress or the Senate when they became generals. That was the only involvement the administration had, unless it was picking the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, because the president dealt directly with the chairman. So during the Clinton administration started interviewing generals, first the higher ranking up, then lower ranking, and they were involved in all of the general officer approvals and appointments. Well, it became, hey, guess what? If you want to be a general, you better see the policy their way. So they started seeing policies their way. Then they started seeing not only policies their way, they started seeing politics their way. After George W. left, all of the generals that were with him pretty much left because they had, made it clear that that's where their politics were. So after that, where do we end up with after that? You end up with Obama, and you had, 8 years of generals now pledging their allegiance to politics not the Constitution, as they like to come out and say. They're all political appointees at this point. The 4 years of Trump, first time around, there was fighting and difficulty. It was active in the military at that time. I can tell you that it was house cleaning by General Mattis first off, but it was resentment and struggling and resistance by everybody in the higher ups in the military that had pledged to the Obama administration. Go back to the Biden administration. That's where we are. Those that stayed are still there, feel themselves more powerful. The problem now is loyalty of the general officers. They no longer are loyal to their mission, no longer loyal to the country. They are loyal to the politician over them because they want their jobs.
Well, and that then in turn turns around and affects readiness. I mean, take for example, you had at the end of Trump's last administration,
because they're putting forth those policies. They're putting forth DEI policies. They're putting forth the woke policies, and all those take from readiness. So because of their loyalty to that administration and putting forth that administration's policies, that's what affects readiness.
Exactly. In other words, they're saying, look, we'd rather be woke than be prepared to fight wars. And quite honestly, wartime readiness needs to be the number one focus of the military.
Yeah, and it's national defense should be the number one focus, right? And that should be either at home or abroad.
Yeah, if only we had a military or a president who was focused on that. Well, guess what? We will soon have a president that is focused on those things. And not only will we have a president who is focused on those things, but I believe that we're going to have a Secretary of Defense who is also going to be focused on those things. You may have heard that a gentleman named Pete Hegseth is going to be the new Secretary of State. And here's just a few words that he has on how to address the issue of wokeness in the military.
There's a chance to course correct it, but it would take a new Trump administration going after it really hard.
How would they correct it?
Well, first of all, you got to fire. You got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. Obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, has got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it, and that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. There's a reason people don't want to serve, because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I, at least for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken, and you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no-nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
And that, my friends, is the reason why he has been named Secretary of Defense. Now, there's a lot of people who are raising questions about his experience. This is a piece that's they're in being put out by the Associated Press. We know those folks are. Anyway, it says here, President-elect Donald Trump stunned the Pentagon and the broader defense world by nominating Fox News host Pete Hegseth to serve as defense secretary, tapping someone largely inexperienced and untested on the global stage to take over the world's largest and most powerful military. The news was met with bewilderment and worry among many in Washington as Trump passed on a number of established national security heavy hitters and chose an Army National Guard major well known in conservative circles as the co-host of Fox News Channel's Fox and Friends Weekend. While some Republican lawmakers had a muted response to the announcement, Others called his combat experience an asset and said he was tremendously capable. Now, I've read his book. I've had a chance to watch him speak a number of times, and I got to tell you, I think while he may not be someone who's an insider within the military industrial complex, he is definitely somebody who understands the mindset and the motivation of those who serve in the military, what will encourage people to be effective warfighters. And we'll get the military back on track. Anyway, that's my perspective. I've never served in the military, so that's my perspective as an outsider. Mike, you're an insider, so well, at least you're an insider to having been in the military. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the choice?
Yeah, listen, this guy's great. I think he's going to be a perfect fit for it. What you want there in that position is first off somebody that's loyal to the president, right? Because that's what you need. And let's kind of define how this works, right? The generals assure that the combat readiness is maintained, and that's what they should be focused on. Just like he said, the combat readiness. The president is the one who sets the policy on where we're going to go with our military, what we're going to do with them, and then the defense secretary is the one who ensures that the generals are doing their job and make sure that the president's word is carried out to them. It's pretty simple. He's on the same page as the president. He has the military experience, and his experience is very important experience, Craig. Now, for 20 years with the wars on terror and everything overseas, the military spat up and chewed up and spat out all of its combat service officers, all of the ones that were there, the actual doing fighting, the captains, the majors, the ones like you see here, the lieutenants that were out there, and just used them and abused them, and deployment after deployment, 5, 6, 10 years at a time, and then brought them back home. And while they were gone, all the rear echelon mother sitting around on their big fat asses were now in charge, and that's what you have in the Pentagon. They all found a way not to go to deployment, not a way to go to war, and stayed home and made this policy that kept the war fighters from getting promoted, so they could stay in charge and sit there and suck on the teeth of the White House. So this is great that they're putting a guy in there that knows how to, eat dirt and chew and spit nails out. This is the guy who we want. He's going to carry out the president's policy, and this is the kind of guy who will be standing out with his feet in the dirt, making sure the generals are doing their job.
All right. First of all, let me just say it was impressive how you bleeped yourself. I'll just point that out. I did catch you bleeping yourself. But I think the other thing is people act like everybody who served as Secretary of Defense has been in the military or served in the military. And first of all, this guy has served in the military, and he's served. Yeah, he's been boots on the ground. So, so this is a guy who's got the experience, but I think also in the role that he has played, not just on Fox News, but just in things that he's done within the military community, I think he has a different perspective than most others. But like you said, there are generals who will be beneath him. They're generals that are serving. Their responsibility is going to be to make sure that the soldiers are ready, that the military is ready to go and to fight. His job is to make sure they're doing that. And
you can expect a bloodbath when Trump takes office. All right, anybody that's been involved in DEI, and they've already identified these people, they're gone. They're gone. And what happened during the last time when Trump took office is the Pentagon stalled. Every time that he would put down a policy, General Mattis, as great as he was, would try and get the Pentagon to do what he wanted them to do, or perhaps use that time to perhaps sway Trump back a little bit. Get him to calm down. This is going to be, what? Here's your orders. Are you going to do them? No, you're fired. Who's next in line? And go straight on down the line until you end up with the last lieutenant if you have to.
Right. Their argument is going to be, they're going to be, well, this goes back to what Trump said. He wanted generals like Hitler. Well, no, he wants generals who are going to follow his orders. Not violate the Constitution, but that are going to follow his orders and not put the bureaucracy above doing their job.
That's right. Exactly right.
So,
do your job or go home.
There you go. And I'll tell you, once again, people around the world are looking at this and they're like, ooh, wow, okay, Trump is not playing. He is sending a bunch. He is sending a bunch of war fighters. He's going to put war fighters in the military. You know what that means? You know what that means, folks? That means people are not going to want to mess with them. This is peace through strength. You don't get peace through, well, let's sit back and let's, be nice to everybody. Let's be politically correct. Let's institute DEI and transgender policy and all that. I mean, put it to you this way: who would you rather have representing you on the world stage in the military? Would you rather have Pete Hegseth or Rachel Levine?
Yeah, right.
If someone is going to fight for you, and it's kind of like this, right? If you have a bodyguard, right, and you have someone who's protecting you, and you want someone who's going to ward off someone who might potentially harm you and attack you, trust me, you do not want Rachel Levine to be the one to be protecting you.
Nope.
Yeah, because she ain't gonna do it. Okay, this next pick now. If you thought Pete Hegseth was driving people crazy, or you thought Pete Hegseth as defense secretary, if you thought Kristi Noem as Homeland Security was driving people nuts, how about this one? Because the left utterly hates. Can I say hates? Can I say it with any more contempt in my voice than how they feel about him? There are few people who the left hates more than Matt Gaetz. Well, guess who's going to be the new Attorney General? That is right. He's been nominated. Mr. Matt Gaetz is looking relatively... Basically, I wanted to use this article because I wanted to let you know, it's kind of interesting that a lot of people in the mainstream media really were treating Donald Trump in the transition as though, hey, he's actually a normal guy, going to be president with a normal cabinet. And so here you have Politico saying Trump's cabinet was looking relatively normal. Then came Matt Gaetz. All right, let's read this one. Read a little bit of it. It says, for days, Donald Trump's selections for top roles in his administration were hailed by traditional operators in Washington as being particularly normal. Susie Wiles as chief of staff would keep everyone in the West Wing on track. Mark Rubio would avoid causing catastrophe abroad. Former Immigration and Customs Enforcement head Tom Homan would handle the president-elect's aggressive border agenda. And then, in the span of less than 24 hours, Trump added one after another a series of cabinet picks that were not just eyebrow-raising, but fear-inducing for much of Washington and even some within the GOP. It culminated with Trump tapping Florida Representative Matt Gaetz as for Attorney General on Wednesday, selecting one of the House's top flamethrowers and grandstanders who himself has been under investigation by the Chamber's Ethics Committee. Trump chose former Congresswoman and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence and Fox News Pete Hegseth as his Secretary of Defense. Both Hegseth and Gabbard served in the military, though each were dark horse selections by Trump, known for being media personalities, more known for being media personalities than their influence on national security matters. Now, mostly though, what I want to talk about here is the selection of Matt Gaetz, because you can say what you want about Matt Gaetz. Is he a flamethrower? Yes, most definitely. Is he a bomb thrower? Most definitely. But you know what? What was supposed to catch fire always caught fire. What was supposed to get blown up always got blown up, because dude is smart. Dude is aggressive and dude is smart. Now, I'm real curious to see how he utilizes that, but I think that in many cases, most of what this is going to be the war on the bureaucracy in the three-letter agencies. That's what we're going to be seeing.
Oh, yeah, because he absolutely goes after them. You've seen him up in Congress. And listen, he's a huge proponent of getting rid of the ATF as well. So this is a great guy to have in the cabinet up there. He is absolutely a bulldog, and he's going to tear through them. He's going to tear through the bureaucracy. And listen, this is the kind of guy where he starts holding, there start to be hearings up there in Congress, and now you you ignore one of his subpoenas, you're going to get a visit at your door. You're going to get an escort. You know, you're either going there or you're going into the Gray Bar Motel.
Well, and here's what's important about that. What's important about that is keep in mind, under the Trump administration, it was the first time you ever saw both allies, people who served in a sitting administration actually be brought up on charges, right, for contempt of Congress and actually sent to jail. I mean, they said that Trump was going to go after his political enemies, and he's not going to go after his political enemies, but he is going to go after people who broke the law, who violated the public trust in going after him and others, who, by the way, happen to be their political enemy. He's going to go after people who did exactly what they're saying he is going to do once he gets in office.
That's right. That's right. Because they did it.
Yes.
That's right. It's not going after political enemies. He's going after people that played politics while they were in office.
Well, and what's important to note about that is the overwhelming majority percentage of voters, even if they believe that Trump was guilty of a crime, believe that the prosecutions were politically motivated.
Absolutely.
And once you do that, once you cross that line, the line's now crossed. And by the way, this has nothing to do with being politically motivated. This has everything to do with making sure that people don't do this again in the future.
Draining the swamp and cleaning up the swamp rats out of Washington, D.C.
Well, and that's definitely what needs to happen. Definitely time for some swamp rats to be gotten rid of. Speaking of swamp rats, the Senate has selected a new leader, and as CNN would dub him, they labeled Mr. Thune as anti-MAGA. I'm sorry, it wasn't them. It was not them. It was Time Magazine, who actually labeled him as, what do they call him? The most anti-MAGA leader in the mix. So someone who was not necessarily an acolyte of Donald Trump's, but I noticed that they didn't deal at all with his talking all about his conservatism. So let me read this real quick. It says, to outsiders, it looks like a whole lot like Donald Trump, excuse me, has unreviled control over the current Republican Party. He rode a remarkable and historic wave back to re-election last week, one in which his allies expanded their majority in the House and the Senate will return in January, with Republicans holding the gavels. To the lay eye, Trump and his GOP lackeys are going to have free reign of Washington for at least the next 2 years. Democrats, it's best to just cower and cede ground. But look a little closer, and the Republican monopoly is a little less certain. The House is destined to be a mess, given a narrow margin of majority and the parochial whims of some of the most right-wing members. Republicans on most measures are expected to need a handful of Democratic votes to get must-pass pieces of legislation across the finish line, and that is going to force at least some modicum of whittling of conservative wish lists. In the Senate, the surviving filibuster demands a 60-vote bar for most measures, again needing a handful of Democratic votes to lift the big pieces into law. Simply put, Trump was never going to get a blank check from his pals in Congress. That check got even less blank on Wednesday when Senate Republicans picked their successor for Mitch McConnell, who is ending a record 18 years as party leader. In his place, GOP lawmakers elevated Senator John Thune of South Dakota, who spent the last few years as a watchful student of McConnell's mastery of the Senate and its quirks. Similarly, an institutionalist, Thune best bested colleagues John Cornyn of Texas and Rick Scott of Florida for the job on the second ballot. Cornyn moved that the decision be made unanimous. All right, so they want to label Thune as anti as an anti-Trumper. I think this is the media's attempt to try and create divisions within the Republican Party. I think they're going to do much the same way they did with John McCain, much the same way they have done with they've been doing with Mitt Romney. They're trying to curry favor with Republicans who might actually, if they have the ego, be willing to fight against Donald Trump, and side with the Democrats in many cases. But I don't think he's as anti-Trump as they think he is.
No, and you're exactly right. They're trying to. It's again the media trying to show that look, we're important. We have things to say. It's them putting out bad information again, trying to create hate and discontent. Exactly like you say, put that division in. This guy will be fine. He knows how to play ball, and if he doesn't know how to play ball, they'll feel fine in the Senate locked out.
You know, I'll tell you, it's one of the things that I was telling folks. I said, here's the reason why I think a lot of people are more comfortable with Donald Trump than they were with Kamala Harris. They know that within the Republican Party, and Donald Trump can, in some cases, and some of the things in particular that he says, can be kind of out there. Now, you and I know that largely that's kind of his starting negotiating position. That's not necessarily where he plans on ending up. In some cases, he's just riffing off the top of his head. But we all know that there are people within the Republican Party who are going to protect him from himself. When he says something out there, people are going to talk to him, and next thing you know, he doesn't. Not only does he not do it, but he never even says it again. The problem is that on the left, there is nobody who would have reined in Kamala Harris's worst instincts. In fact, they encouraged her to do the worst things that she would want to do: the DEI, the CRT, the price controls, all of the things that she was talking about doing, which were all very, very bad ideas. Her people were encouraging her to do. So, I mean, like I said, in this particular case, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see especially key conservative ideas happen, and they're not just going to happen, they're going to happen with lightning speed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think we're the world. Well, the world on the left is in for a rude awakening, and the media is not going to be able to keep up because between the president and social media and Elon up there, they're going to be irrelevant.
Oh, that's another appointment we haven't even touched on. The whole idea that they've got now, him and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to be heading up a new agency, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Basically, their mission is by 2026 to cut about $2 trillion in spending. This is a guy who came into Twitter, and it's kind of funny because whether you believe Twitter was run well or not, he cut about 80% of the workforce, and Twitter works the same for me now as it did before they got fired. So evidently there were a bunch of people doing nothing.
Yep, exactly right.
One would guess that the federal government is about the same. The worst part, Mike, is that when you look at a lot of the economic growth, and I can't really speak for the entire country, but I believe this to be the case. But I do know that in California, they bragged about the number of new jobs. But when you factor out the private sector jobs versus the straight government jobs or government funded jobs, meaning jobs that came from specifically